You're listening to The Back 40, the podcast for Ontario farmers, covering topics and issues that matter most to Ontario agriculture. Brought to you by Trillium Mutual Insurance, bringing the ag community together one podcast at a time. I'm the host of The Back 40, Mike Bryan, agribusiness specialist at Trillium Mutual Insurance. I think everybody's aware that agriculture has changed over the past 30 to 40 years. Farming has become far larger farms as the industry consolidates down to fewer and fewer producers. With that comes a different necessary set of skills that sometimes farmers didn't plan on or aren't maybe as comfortable with as they might be with the day-to-day operations of the farms. And those are some of the business skills that are necessary to operate a larger operation. There's a new series of short courses from the University of Guelph called the Foundations in Agriculture Management. We're talking today with John Cranfield. John is the Associate Dean for External Relations with the Ontario Agricultural College at the University of Guelph, also a professor in the Agricultural Economics Department at OAC. John, welcome to the Back 40.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I'm delighted to be here.
So, where did the idea for Foundations in Agricultural Management start?
It all started with a phone call, a very simple phone call, actually, from people at RBC, and in particular, the RBC Foundation, to the Dean of OAC, Rennie Van Acker, asking if we would be interested in partnering and collaborating with RBC to create a course to try to build the management skills, the business management skills of Canadian farmers. And it was modeled after a similar kind of program that RBC developed with the business school at McGill University that was entitled Personal Finance for Canadians. It was a resounding success. And RBC was looking at trying to expand sort of the waterfront, if you will, of those kinds of courses to try to boost the skills of people whose needs they are serving as a financial services institution, but also just generally help people in Canadian agriculture. And so they came to us because OAC is the oldest agricultural college in Canada. We're one of the biggest. We think we're one of the best. And it was a natural fit that they would come here. We've had a relationship and conversations with RBC in the past. And so we were comfortable with each other. And really it was just that one very simple phone call that was about, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Would you like to partner? And it was an easy answer for us. It was almost an immediate answer for us to say yes. So one of the things that got us excited about the course is it's a new way of engaging and educating. Guelph has got distance education, but we don't have something like this. We don't have something that's free. We don't have something that's this short and pithy. This is not formal classroom education. It's not graduate research education, and it's not what we might think of as outreach. It's another new way of engaging with people.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea for a series of courses that would certainly fit in with what the OAC does really, really well. How did you personally get involved in this?
Well, partly through the fundraising element. So this course came about because the RBC Foundation made a $1.25 million gift to the university to help support the development of the program. A lot of the work that I do is in working on strategic partnerships and external relations, and RBC is one of those cases. And so I was involved in the early development of the proposal that went to the foundation, and then also stewarding the relationship with RBC. And at the time, the decision was made that I would be the Dean's Office representative in sort of the oversight of the program. One of the staff people that we were going to have sort of lead a little more of the operational side of it, and then decided to retire, which left a bit of a gap. And so Rennie Van Acker, my boss, and I had a conversation that probably made sense for the continuity of the program for me to step in. And I'm really glad I did. It's been, honestly, this has been one of the most professionally rewarding experiences of my life, in terms of developing the course and working with our partners on the course and working with the faculty on the course. It's just been an exciting opportunity. And I think it's created something that will really help Canadian farmers.
Now, I've talked a little bit about a series of short courses, a series of different lectures. Tell us a little bit about the structure of what you've developed here with Foundations in Agriculture Management.
Sure. So the course it's an online course. It's free, so and it's open to anyone. So you don't need to have a high school diploma or a university degree or anything to take it. Anyone can sign up for it, and anyone in the world can sign up for it. But we've structured it around 8 relatively short modules that have been sequenced in a particular way to build some foundations, and then to give a little more deeper insight on some key issues, and then the last piece, which is on farmer mental health and resilience. And so the idea is you start with module one. All of the modules are about 20 to 25 minutes in length, so they're not terribly long. And the modules are meant to be an introduction into particular themes that are being addressed. So for instance, module one is on business planning. Professor Mike von Massow from our Department of Food, Ag, and Resource Economics walks the participants through a bit of an overview of the course, but then also here's business planning 101 at a fairly high level. And at the end of that module, there's a short quiz for people to take, and you've got to get 75% on that quiz to pass to the next module, and so on and so forth. So you graduate up to the subsequent modules as you go through those quizzes. And then once you're done, you get a certificate of completion that indicates that you did actually go through the course. And hopefully, if we've designed this right, one of the outcomes is that as a participant, you feel motivated and a call to action to go and explore more and learn more about how you can help grow and develop your business. The outcome that we're really looking for is to put more business management skills in the hands of Canadian farmers. It's not to take away from their management skills as it exists. I mean, they're running businesses. We wanted to try to drive a call to action to think a little more systematically on a couple of issues, but then also not just take the course and be done with it, but take the course, reflect on what was learned, how you can turn that into action. We have a phrase here at the university sometimes about turning knowledge into action. And so, okay, so now you know some things maybe you didn't know before. How do you act on that? So we really want to encourage producers to be acting on things either through development of a business plan or going out and working with either certified professionals or other professionals or mentors or trusted colleagues to learn more about finance, to learn and understand more about human resource management, to get a better sense of what's involved in farm transition and farm succession planning. And so really to us, at the end of these modules, what we hope is that participants are all feeling excited and eager for that next step on going out and learning even more and then turning that into action to help build their business.
Now, I've had a look through the different topics and the different lecturers that you've managed to get for each of these. Which came first? The idea of we need to cover this topic, so we'll approach this particular person, or was it we've got this person and they would really do a good job on this? How did you determine what sort of topics you were going to end up with?
Well, that's a great question. It was more topics than instructors. And so the course was developed, or the modules were developed in conjunction with people here in the OAC Dean's Office, representatives from RBC, and then also our other partner and our other collaborator in this project, which is Farm Credit Canada. So all three groups had subject matter experts who were coming together to talk about what are the business skills that Canadian farmers need to try to grow and accentuate. And what's the sensible ordering of a sequence of those courses? And really, it was about a month or two of collaboration where what we were doing was identifying what are the key topics, what are these broad 8 topics for the modules, and then within each module, some ideation and brainstorming and reflecting around, okay, well, what are the 3 or 4 main points that we want to get across in this short 20-minute video? When we did that, we were thinking about it like wireframing something. So, okay, in business planning, here are the 3 main points that we would like whoever's going to be leading that course to try to hit. And in the course of those conversations, that's where we came up with the sequencing of the courses to be a little more progressive rather than sort of all over the place and all over the map. Once we coalesced and really firmed up what those 8 modules are and what the wireframe looks like, that's where Rennie Van Acker and I sat down and started to think about, okay, so who are the subject matter experts who have really deep knowledge and experience in these areas at the university, who we think would be an excellent resource to have and an excellent presenter for the course. We wanted to make sure that they were from the university. They've got something to offer, and we want to see more of the university going out to the rest of the world. And what was really exciting about it was that it wasn't just about OAC, it was about the entirety of the university. So 5 of the faculty members that are teaching in the modules are from OAC. We also have 2 instructors from the Lang School of Business and 1 instructor from the Ontario Veterinary College. So really, it was about getting the ideas right with the people who are at the coalface of working with Canadian farmers, people from RBC, people from FCC, getting a sense of what's the knowledge gap or the experience gap that we need to try to fill, and then getting those subject matter experts engaged in conversation around how would they fill out that wireframe and how would they write a script to really bring that alive and make it engaging and enticing and give the people who are participating in the course the experience and the insight that they need.
So just for our listeners, take us through a few of the different topics that you landed on.
Sure. That's a great question. I was trying to lead you to that actually, so I'd be happy to do that. So as I mentioned, the first one is business planning. And this is really about taking a step back from the day-to-day operations and asking yourself, where do I want my operation to be in 5 years? And what do I want it to look like? And then Mike Von Massel, who's the instructor in that course, walks you through, here's the basic steps of how you develop a business plan, including things like write it down, share it out, talk to people, get some input, get some insight. Don't just stay contained within yourself. Get feedback from people so that you can tweak it and think it a little bit more. And do you have blind spots? Can you get that teased out of the business plan? We have 2 modules on financial literacy. One of them is based more around trying to understand your cost of production, and that's taught by Richard Vine, a faculty member at our Ridgetown campus. And the second one concerns financial statements, so balance sheets and income statements. That's taught by Ken McEwen, also from our Ridgetown campus. And those modules are really designed as those foundational modules that you really need to understand that finance when you're starting to think about that business planning and the investment decisions that you might have to make going forward to make that business plan a reality. And part of the conversation that we had with FCC and RBC was making sure that we've got financial literacy embedded in, so that when participants from the course go to talk with a banker or a lender, they can be conversant. And not to say that this doesn't happen, but what we were hearing from the bankers is more. We just need more of that. We changed topics a little bit in the 4th module. The 4th module is taught by Sarah Mann, who is a faculty member in the Lang School of Business here at Guelph. She's got a deep well of expertise and experience on human resource management, including human resource management in the agricultural sector. And so she talks about different ways that you can approach hiring new employees, motivating new employees. And one of the reasons why we put this module in has to do with the fact that part of our target market is getting at producers who are looking to grow or change their operation and make that shift from the person who's in the cab to the person who's in the office managing the person in the cab. And so as soon as you have that shift in terms of you as the owner, shifting from being the owner operator to being the owner manager, you have to rely on other people. And that reliance on other people means human resource management is profoundly important. It's just incredibly important. We recognize in the course that those people are that business's best assets. And so it's a module that's really designed to get people motivated and keen and understanding about the importance of that hiring process and how you retain and motivate your employees.
That particular topic sounds to me like something that a lot of farmers, as we were growing up, I grew up on a farm where there were no employees, right? And it was the only employees were the kids, and we did the work along with our parents. To now take a business and say, well, I want to grow it to the point where I'm not doing the physical work anymore. I've got someone else to. That sounds like, it sounds pretty basic, but that's a huge step for a lot of people, isn't it?
It really is a big step. And I think I'm going to wager that you and I are both Gen Xers, both of a generation where mom and dad maybe came and kicked you in the seat of the pants to get you out of the house in the morning to go do things.
Well, I kind of wish I was, but I have to admit I'm a little older than that.
You don't look it, Mike.
I appreciate that.
But there has been an intergenerational shift in terms of approach to getting work done on the farm. And we're seeing more and more early career farmers being reliant on hired employees. Sometimes it's skilled, sometimes it's semi-skilled employees. You're still hiring people nonetheless. And it is really important because it's not the reliance necessarily on family labor, it's the reliance on hired labor. And that does change the dynamic a bit. You want to treat people with dignity and respect. Sometimes you can say things to family members that you really shouldn't say to a hired person on your farm. It's just not the right thing to do. And so it's making sure that we're getting ahead of that as we start to see those demographic shifts towards that issue, that shift away from family labor to hired labor become more and more pervasive. I think another piece that's important on that hired labor front, Mike, is the role of technology in agriculture. And you and I have talked about this before. We're in the middle of this agricultural revolution 4.0, where technology and digital agriculture is really starting to take off. And what that means is that the skill set that people who are working on the farm does have to be a bit different. And sometimes those people with those skills they've got a high skill set, and you do have to hire that expertise. And you need to make sure that you're hiring the right person to operate that piece of machinery that might be worth much more than it ever was because of the electronics and the computers and the digital assets that are embedded in it now than before. And so you want to get that right person operating that right piece of machinery in order your business and not have it be an expensive mistake.
Yeah, I know I had a tour with some brokers a few years ago that we went through a large operation and ended up in the machine shed, and there was a large corn planter. And I don't know how much it cost, but well north of $100,000 plus. And the farmer had taken us through, and somebody said, like, that's a neat piece of equipment there. And he says, yeah, I sent two people away for a 2-day course to learn how to operate it. And the one comment that was made was, well, if I spent that much on equipment, I wouldn't let anybody else touch it. And then the farmer said, I don't do that. I sent them away to learn how to do that. I don't mess with that. That's their job. And I trust them to do it properly for us. That's quite a change in mentality to be able to step back and say, I've got people to do that. I don't need to know all of the details.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because it's about moving away from the yeoman farmer or the yo person farmer who could do everything on the farm. And we've seen technological advances in specialization come to the point it's just not possible all the time. And as an economist, I think about it through the lens of specialization and division of labor. I mean, this goes back to Adam Smith 101. When things get more complicated, you do want those specialists who have that deep well of knowledge and understanding, because they'll be able to understand and fix problems much quicker than you will ever be. And in my case, you probably won't cause the damage to that piece of machinery because you got someone who actually knows how to operate.
Yes.
I think that touches on a key point that I want to mention about the course. Is when we were developing this, and it's in the tagline in the course, we frame this around invest in your business and invest in yourself. And so you taking the time to take the course is about an investment in yourself. But this human resource management module and our conversation just now about sending someone away to get trained to operate that piece of equipment, that's about an investment in your business by investing in your people. Mm-hmm. And there's good HR practice there, because what you're saying to that employee is, hey, you know what? You're a really valuable member of our team. I trust you a lot. I've got this new piece of equipment. It's very technical. I'm willing to pay for you to go and get trained on this. And you know what that says to the employee is, this person values me. Mm-hmm. They're a good employer. I like working here. And so in some ways, it becomes a bit of a virtuous cycle where you've invested in your people, but they then get that affinity and that connection back to you, where it makes it easier to retain them. And they don't start looking for a job somewhere else. They want to keep working for you because you've shown through your own values and actions, hey, I value you. I want you to be an important part of our team.
People who are valued do a better job. That's just the bottom line.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is your organization in need of funding? Trillium's Roots Community Fund is currently looking to provide money to projects for organizations in Ontario that are agriculturally focused. Applications are now being accepted for Ontario projects, including facilities or equipment upgrades, funding for research, innovation, and much more. To learn more about Roots, including how to apply, visit our website at trilliummutual.com and click Community at the top of the page. So I kind of stopped you there. Go on with some of the other topics that you cover in the course.
Sure thing. So, I mean, we're dealing with agriculture, and agriculture is about biology, technology, and human ingenuity. And one of the things that is inescapable in just about every element and every part of modern agriculture is risk, whether that's production risk, whether that's financial risk, whatever risk, whether that's interest rate risk, the sky's the limit. And so our fifth module is about risk management. Now, I'm the first to say we probably could have done an entire course on risk management in agriculture. We've only got one module, but it's a great module because it really does help frame out ways to think about the nature of risk that you face. And then when it starts to come to things like production risk and market risk and financial risk, what are some of the tools that are at your disposal? And again, we don't get into the nitty-gritty details about how you structure hedges or how you use futures markets. It's mentioned in it, but there's a broad discussion about here's this vast array of tools that you have available. If this is something that you're interested in, there are people out there with a lot of expertise who can help you with this. And so again, it's about that call to action and get people thinking about the importance of risk on the farm and also what you can do about it, that you don't necessarily just have to accept the risk that you might face in a particular marketplace. Oh, and that risk management module is taught by Gay-Tu Hailu, who's a really well-respected faculty member in our Department of Food, Agricultural, and Resource Economics. We then shift gears to two modules that I think are going to be of increasing importance in Canadian agriculture, and that's on farm transition planning. The first module, farm transition module, was taught by Alphonse Weersink, a St. Mary's boy. also a faculty member here at the University of Guelph. And that module is more on some of the mechanics that you need to be aware of when you're starting to have conversations about that farm transition. And so what are the legal documents you need to think about? And making sure you've got wills up to date, making sure you've got financial information up to date. So I can't do it justice. I encourage the audience to go and get to the 6th module of the course, because Alphonse really does lay out quite nicely sort of here's the nuts and bolts of how transition works and what you need to be aware of. And then in the 7th module, Julia Christensen Hughes, who was the former dean of the Gordon S. Lang School of Business here at Guelph, leads a module on the softer side of farm transition. And when I say soft, I don't mean easy. It's actually dealing with a very hard issue, but it's that soft nebulous thing that is often a barrier to a lot of families having conversations about farm transition, which is how do you work together as a family navigating that transition? And how do you support one another? And getting at more of the emotional side of it and recognizing that you've got 2 sides of a generation that are having this conversation around how does one side let go and how does the other side pick up and how do they both respect each other and what they're doing. That module, I think, from the conversations I've had in my career here in Ontario, that's the piece of that farm transition puzzle that I think is very vexing. We've got a lot of expertise on the technical side, on what are the mechanics of it, but it's those kitchen table conversations with mom and dad and with the siblings, sometimes just the siblings alone, about how are we going to do this and how do we respect the fact that, you know, maybe some of the siblings don't want to actively farm, but they still want to have an interest in the farm.
We've had several different guests on that have talked farm transition, from with Elaine Fraison, who talked about, you know, the management of those difficult conversations. With Maggie Van Camp on, who lost her husband in a farming accident, and talked about that farm transition and the fact of what they had done that allowed it to be a little bit easier. It's never easy in that situation, but a little bit easier to get where you're going. I think it's a conversation, though, that still a lot of people don't want to have. And it's really tough to get that conversation going. So those soft skills to how do you approach this and how does everybody get what they need out of it? And that's maybe the toughest part of the whole deal.
I think what you said there, how does everyone get what they need out of it, is really important. And that's probably a constant reminder that, you know, you almost want to write it down on a piece of paper so that when you're having those kitchen table conversations over weeks, months, and sometimes years, it's about what do I need and how do I communicate this with mom and dad or with my siblings or with my kids about, you know, here's what I want to get out of this. And sometimes that may seem a bit selfish, and I don't mean it to be in a selfish way, but the barriers to those conversations or the barriers to the transition happening in a way that don't leave people disaffected is people being clear about what they expect and what they'd like to see as a good outcome. Again, it's a little bit of a put on your Brene Brown and be vulnerable face, but also be brave in having those conversations. It's not easy. It's really not easy, especially if you've got farms that have been in multiple generations and, you know, are surpassing century farms, as we're starting to see in Ontario. We've got a lot of those. That can be a challenge. And so we're hoping that module really lands well and gives people some tools that makes them feel just a little more comfortable starting to have the conversation, and that they've got the tools that they need in order to navigate that conversation.
Yeah, I find it interesting you talk about vulnerable and being a little bit selfish and saying, this is what I need. This is why I need it. Podcast that has gone up, Mel Limas, that she talks about those conversations and getting those conversations started. And one of the things she said is just getting both sides to listen to what the other side needs. And if you can understand where the other side is coming from, that makes a huge difference. That's a big step towards getting that solved, that problem solved, about meeting everybody's needs at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Julia Christensen Hughes does a great job of talking about that, about the role and importance of listening, but also the role of the head and the heart in all of this too. That you know, we can't lose sight of that. But using your head and your heart really focuses around active listening, and making sure that you can understand that other person's perspective as well as possible. And I mean, I think this is true in all parts of life, not just in farm family transition, but really comes to roost when we're talking about the transition of those farms.
Yeah, I think there'd be a lot less disagreement if we all just stopped and listened first before we started talking.
That's right. That's right. I have a little sticky note that I've had on my computer during the pandemic. All it says is shut up and listen.
Yeah.
Because you get on these Zoom calls and it's easy to start talking. And I find, you know, that reminder of just shut up and listen is really helpful.
Yeah, it's a good reminder for all of us that sometimes we I was in sales for a few years, and we all talked about that as salespeople, talking ourselves into the sale and then talking ourselves back out of it again.
Yeah.
And because we simply didn't listen and didn't know when to stop. And as you say, just stop and shut up
Yeah.
and wait for a response.
Yeah. Well, the tensions that sometimes come about because of farm transition management, and also because of the risks that producers face in agriculture, those tensions and the weight of the decisions that are being made can really be incredibly heavy. And so we were very intentional in including our last module, Module 8, on farmer mental health and resilience. And that module is led by Andrea Jones-Bitton from the Ontario Veterinary College. Andrea has done a tremendous job of raising awareness and understanding, and informed awareness and understanding rooted in research around issues concerning farmer mental health in Canadian agriculture, and not just in Canada. I mean, this is something that we see all over the world. Her focus has been here in Canada. We were intentional with the inclusion of the partners, with our collaborators. We wanted to have that module in course, and we were intentional in putting it last, because that last farm transition module could probably be pretty heavy for some people, because it's going to raise some issues. And so that module, the Andrea's module, is really about, here's a toolkit that you can access to help you both individually, but also some resources where you can reach out. And that's the big thing that I think is that she's been advocating and leading. And we're really proud that she's part of the course, and glad that she's part of the course, because we're able to amplify this message a little bit more about, here's some tools you can use, but also making sure that people know it's okay not to be okay. And it's really okay to reach out for help. There's nothing wrong with saying you're not doing well and that you need help. It saves lives. And so that module was really intended to be there as a backstop against the heaviness of that farm transition module. Now, I mean, farmer mental health and resilience is a heavy topic in itself. But the way Andrea talks about it really brings it home in terms of actions people can take, and not an acceptance and passive acceptance of it, but I can actually act on this. And so we're quite thrilled with where we landed in terms of her module and all the modules. The other thing I should mention is that it's not just the instructors as talking heads. We were aligned with our collaborators, with RBC and FCC, and also with the production company, who did an amazing job on the videos and the modules. We wanted to have some kind of testimonial embedded in each module, but we didn't have anyone who'd gone through the course. And so with our partners, we actually identified 4 different farmers in the Southern Ontario region, and we had to accept that we've got to get a production company to those farms. Farmers who had gone through similar kind of business growth we were trying to target. We were looking at targeting those farmers who want to grow their business, take their business to its next level. And so finding some producers who have gone through that journey already, and then use them as a bit of a testimonial on the importance of each topic. For instance, that includes Dana Thatcher, Thatcher Farms, Mark and Sandy Brock, Brett Israel from 3Gen Farms up around St. Mary's, I believe. And then Hardeep Singh, who is a co-owner of a greenhouse down by Simcoe. And they really bring to life the lessons from each module. And so there's little video vignettes spread throughout each module of someone talking about the importance of business planning, of someone talking about the importance of human resource management, as an example. But they're producers, they're real people, and they're real producers who've actually had to deal with those issues. And it was important for us to include that, because what we wanted the audience to see, what we wanted those participants to see, is someone who they could emulate. And that participant could see themselves in that module and in that role of that producer who's been successful in growing their business. And so it's really a way of doing a little bit of role modeling, if you will, but making it much more real for the participant than an academic exercise and someone at the front of a classroom giving a lecture. And we've tried to style these not as lectures like that. They're quite animated. We've got very high production values. So it's not like there's a professor in a classroom at a blackboard. It's really about trying to have an engaging dialogue, and it's very conversational in that regard.
Who do you see taking this? You've talked about it's available to anyone there, but you must have a certain demographic that you suspect are going to be the most interested in this.
Yeah, we've targeted 2 groups of people. One is early career people in farming, so youth, I think 18 to 35, 18 to 30. People who are just getting started out in farming, whether that's on a full-time basis or a part-time basis, and who maybe didn't have exposure to some of these topics either in high school or when they were in a college or university program, if they went to college or university. and feel like there's a bit of a gap in terms of what they feel comfort with. The other group that we're targeting is a little more established farmers and producers who are maybe a little bit later in life, not necessarily close to retiring, but taking stock of their operation and saying, you know what, I've seen people up and down the laneway do some things differently and start to grow their operations. Maybe it's time we start to think about doing the same thing. Agricultural markets are incredibly dynamic. One of the things that excites me about the food and agricultural sector as a whole and being in agriculture is how quickly it changes. And so there's all sorts of opportunities, I think, for both the young and the more experienced farmer. I think for those more experienced farmers, this is about some reminders that maybe some things that they knew or once knew, or giving them the courage to start acting on, well, you know what, I'm going to start to imagine what a bolder future would look like for a farm in 5 years, so that when it comes time to have that farm transition conversation, I'm able to pass on a thriving business or a business that is much bigger than it is now onto the next generation.
So how do people sign up for this? Are these going to be available for a long time, or is this something that's a limited time?
Yeah, great question. So the course is going to run until December of 2023. We launched in January of 2022, January of this year. It is offered throughout the year. We've broken the course up into cohorts, and in fact, into 4 cohorts. So our first cohort ran from January to March. We're in the middle of our second cohort running from April to June, then July to August, and then July to September, beg your pardon, and then October to December. So anyone who's interested can go to guelphagriculturalmanagement.com. You'll go to a landing page, and if you scroll through it, it'll tell you a little bit more about the course, what you can get out of it, who the instructors are, and then there's a registration page. And at that registration page, you sign up with an email and a password, and you get taken right into the course. If you don't finish the 8 modules within your cohort, sign in again when the new module or the new cohort begins and pick up where you left off. So if you can't quite do it in the 3 months, you can pick it up later down the road. And there's going to be little reminders being sent to you from the course saying, hey, you've gotten through 6 modules. This module is about, or this cohort is about to close. It's a good opportunity to try to finish, but you can also finish later if you want to.
It's some topics that fill a niche, I think, out there that maybe are difficult to get information easily from. And as you say, it sounds like something that's going to give people something to think about, and hopefully they'll look further down the road. They'll look further for more information than can be provided in a very short lecture. John, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today on the Back 40.
I really enjoyed the opportunity, and I hope to the listeners that you do sign up for the course and you find it as a motivating call to action to invest in your business, invest in yourself, take your business to its next level.
Thanks, John. We've been listening to John Cranfield, the Associate Dean for External Relations at OAC at the University of Guelph, and we've been discussing their new course, The Foundations in Agricultural Management. You've been listening to The Back 40. Brought to you by Trillium Mutual Insurance. Be sure to subscribe to The Back 40 wherever you find your favorite podcasts so that you don't miss an episode. The Back 40, bringing the ag community together, one podcast at a time. I'm Mike Brine. Until next time, take care and stay safe. You've been listening to The Back 40. Join us next time when our guest will be Leslie Kelly from High Heels and Canola Fields. Leslie is one of the co-founders of Do More Ag, an organization devoted to providing more mental health resources for the farming community. Be sure and listen as Leslie talks about her own personal journey and how it led her to help form Do More Ag. That's next time on The Back 40.